Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Virtual Engagement Ideas Summit with our special guest today, Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Virtual Engagement Ideas Summit, or whatever we call this thing. We have a very special guest today, all the way from Pierce College in Puyallup, Washington, Kelsie Nabass. Those are balloons behind you. Where are those coming from?
These are balloons. They're leftover balloons because my family just celebrated Eid al-Adha over this weekend, and I just decided to repurpose them as a cute little Zoom background.
I love it. I love it. So, did you have family visiting? Did you have extra people in the house this weekend?
Yeah, so actually, I'm very lucky enough that my family lives pretty close. So my cousins live about 1 mile up the road, and we've all kind of been quarantining together. So we hosted at my house and just had a barbecue, picnic, and games in the yard, and did a little balloon backdrop for some photos. And I just decided to keep them.
I love them. I love them. All right, Kelsie, you are the interim director of student life, and you are and Pierce College is a super cool college in Washington State, in the northwest corner of our country. How long have you been on that campus?
So I've been professionally serving at Pierce College for about 4 years now. I'm going into my fifth year. I started in 2016, but I was also a student at Pierce back in 2010, and my first job was in the Office of Student Life when I was 17.
No way. So you started in high school.
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
did running start program is what we call it on the West Coast. I think there's like Jumpstart and that kind of thing, but I did
Yeah.
dual enrollment where I did high school and college at the same time.
That's very cool. And did you where? And then you went somewhere in the interim after you left Pierce. Did you go finish your undergrad somewhere else?
Did. I finished my undergrad at University of Washington, where I was also on the event planning team.
That's awesome. And I remember one of the reasons that I'm so psyched that you're here is to give the perspective of your community college campus that you're at now, but also in the fall, you are on the NACA RCPC committee for the region. And I remember on multiple occasions, I would run into you in one of the advisor lounges where you were diligently working on schoolwork, right? How's that going?
It's going good. So I'm actually currently starting in the fall of this year. I'll be starting my capstone. So I'm currently studying organizational leadership at Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. It's an online program, and I'm almost finished. So I'm actually very excited. It's been a long 2 years,
Yeah.
but I've learned a lot, and I've applied a lot of it directly to the work that I'm doing. So I'm on break right now. I don't have homework right now. I'm taking a little break. This is the first summer vacation I've had in like 18 months. So I'm
So
very,
great.
yeah.
That's great. No, but I really wanted to honor that. Like you were really sort of like an inspiration for me when I was seeing like how like all the other RCP members are at an event or like they've gone to meet up. The end of the day, everyone's like, but you were like cranking through your work, and I think that was just an awesome example to set for somebody who was in his first season as a self-represented artist at NACA. I felt I was working hard, and then I saw you like studying and writing everything down. I was like, I got it easy. Anyway, so thanks. I'm glad that's going well, and I'm glad that you're already as far along as you are. Okay, let's get to the important stuff. Virtual engagement and your campus. Like Washington got hit pretty early with COVID,
Yeah.
and what did that look like for you all as a campus in March? I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so back in March, we were still on campus all the way up until spring break, so we didn't dismiss students early or anything. Campus was officially announced closed, I think, right around my birthday, like right around March 16th to 18th,
Yeah.
is when campus got closed, and it was projected that we would reopen April 24th. So at the beginning of everything, which I'm assuming a lot of people can relate to, we were told like, okay, we're just going to shut down for a little bit, and then by April we'll be open again. So my first instinct as an event planner and someone who loves engagement, I was like, okay, cancel April, push it back to May. Like, let's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
call anything off yet. Let's just push it back to May. We'll be able to come back and hit the ground running. We're just going to have a month off. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out.
Yep.
And as the days went by, it was like, okay, we're actually not coming back. And I
Yeah.
think it was a big shock and the
Yeah.
hardest, definitely.
Yeah. Um, and I'm glad that we're talking because I've talked to advisors who have done over 400 events,
Mhm.
like, and they're totally ready for the fall. Not that anybody really is ready for the fall, but they jumped in, and it's really, I want to know how you're feeling right now with your students, with your team, if they're excited, if they're scared, if they just don't know what's going on. Like, what's the vibe for you, for when students are going to be back on campus or back online?
Yeah, so thankfully, I actually have quite a few students on my team that are returning in the fall. So
Yeah,
basically, they were with us when we went virtual in the spring, and they're completing their second year at Pierce. So the ones that are returning they have experience, right? They kind of know, I mean, no one knows what to expect, but they know a little bit of what to expect just
yeah,
because they experienced it firsthand. And thankfully, that makes up about half of my team. So our team is a little bit smaller because of the virtual, but we did still hire 5 new people. And I think that the combination of the 6 returners and the 5 new people, hopefully, like, we'll get them all on board. We haven't
yeah,
officially started training yet, just because our
yeah,
team doesn't open until
yeah.
September 21st. So we've got a little bit more time than some of those semester
Oh,
schools.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
your calendars are very different. So really, you
yeah.
could, you could. One of the awesome parts about the virtual community is that you're actually going to be able to see folks who are a month in, or even more than a month in, when you're just starting,
Exactly. Um,
right?
So I think the vibe for the newer students, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. But even part of our interview process, and just the conversations that we had with the candidates is like, this is going to be online fall quarter, if not longer.
Yeah,
I think that the students, for a student to be a young person and taking online classes, and 2 of them, actually 2 out of the 5 are freshmen, so they're enrolling in college knowing it's going to be an online experience, applying
yeah,
for knowing it's going to be online. And I think that says a lot about kind of like maybe where their passions lie that they're not aware of yet, because they want to be engaged. So I'm
yeah,
hoping, because the candidates were willing to apply and accept a position that they know is going to be online, that they'll be able to make something out of that because they kind of know what they're getting themselves into a little bit.
yeah, yeah. Wow, I want to meet those students, right?
Uh,
They're going to be great. Hey, so what are some of your, are you, what's your big worry?
oh man, that's a hard question because I feel like a lot of things keep me up from like a personal standpoint. It's kind of like, okay, I've been appointed as interim. Um, just like, are they going to look for someone else? Are they going to be able
Mhm.
to find someone else? What is that going to look like in
Yeah,
terms of our department and our organization? But then I think more important than that for me is the students in our campus. So I'm just thinking, how are we going to reach out to them? How are we
yeah,
going to be able to connect with them? And even if we do reach out and we try to connect, are they going to be open to it, or are they going to be disconnected? So I think the hardest part for me, and the thing that keeps me up, is just students that don't get online. Students that just
yeah.
it just doesn't work for them. So thankfully, like, my background, I've been in online school almost since like 10th grade. I
Oh, cool.
did online high school for a year, and when I was at Pierce, I was on campus, but I took online classes. When I was at UW, I took classes, but then I also did online work. So and I'm in online grad school, so I'm very familiar with
Right.
online learning because I'm an extrovert that gets all my energy out of engagement and event planning and that kind of stuff. I'm
Right.
okay with doing school online. But for people that don't get their energy that way, they get their energy in the classroom and they want to connect with people on an academic level and on an intellectual level. It's like, how are those students going to be able to connect online and connect and engage
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a way, right? So I
Right.
think the hardest part for me is like making sure that we're serving all students, and not just students where it's like, this is what they want, this is what they expect, and this is what they're ready for. But the students that are like, this is really hard and challenging, so I want to be able to reach out to the ones that need the attention and need the help.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. I'm excited for you, like, because of the online community of advisors, that any question that you have, you don't have to come up with the answer,
Yeah.
right? And which I think is so neat right now, so that your ability to connect not with just folks in your region, but folks across the country. And I really think that's kind of fun, as to why this interview is going to be a little different, is because you've kind of got this blank slate, and I want to be able to check in with you in a month. I want to check back with you like in 2 months to
Yeah.
see how this journey has gone for you.
Mhm.
But I just, like, as somebody who's been online every day, engaging with all the higher ed folks across the country, I'm encouraging you to definitely when you have a question, like use the space that's been created online to find out what's working at other community colleges and private schools and four-year state schools, and don't let those things keep you up at night. You know, like because
Yeah,
there's
that's
so many resources.
and it's interesting that you say that because realistically, like, what are we preaching? Like, we're telling students in higher ed, we're like, hey, these are all the resources that are online. Tutoring's online, the library's online, all this stuff's online, and we expect them to do it. But then for some reason, it's hard for us to be like, hey,
Yeah.
like, let me reach out to my colleagues in my network on a larger scale. You know, higher ed, as the interviews that you're doing in this like project that we're building is
Yeah.
people across the nation that have the same job and relate to what we're doing, but we always put ourselves in this little bubble where we don't really connect with anyone or ask questions. So I think it's super important for us as professionals to basically like, there's like a phrase, oh my gosh, I can't think of the phrase right now. Practice what you preach.
You know, practice what you preach, right? Yeah. Well, I wrote something down last night. So I've been like reflecting at the end of every day on the conversations that I've had, and I wrote down just one line last night, and I wrote, "There are no more silos.
Mm,
There are no more silos." And what I saw before in touring as a performer is if I would go to your campus in Washington State, and
mhm.
I would drive an hour away, or even 45 minutes away, or even closer, um, is that an advisor on another campus who maybe hadn't met you yet thought they were isolated in the world of creating. They were the only campus in the world that was trying to do a talent show, right? They were the only campus in the world that was trying to do a family weekend. They're the only campus in the world that wants to do activities fair, a club fair, right?
Yeah,
And what this has done, my hope is that anybody who still lives in a silo, we've got to find them, right?
yeah,
And we've got to invite them in and make sure that they realize that they're not alone, right?
yeah. No,
That
I
they're
totally
not
agree.
alone. That's my hope. Um, but all right, so your voice in that is super important. And then I also want to talk to you about the fact that you are a Muslim woman working on a campus. And let's go back because you said to me that so as a student on campus, there was no Muslim Student Association.
No, when I was a student at Pierce in 2010 to 2012, there was no established Muslim Student Association at the college. Um, oh,
And
go ahead.
then, but then, did you start that? Did you start it when you came back as a you know a staff member?
So I actually, I still was under the impression when I returned as a staff member, I was still under the impression that there just wasn't Muslim students at Pierce College. So for those that are watching and listening in from across the nation, we're about an hour south of Seattle, kind of out in a very like a rural town, and there's just not a big Muslim population out here. So I actually had an international student who was from Zambia, who happened to be Muslim on our team. And by being a student who walks around campus and is in the classrooms and that kind of thing more than me, because I'm always in my office or doing events and I'm in one building, this student is like, hey, came to me and is like, Kelsie, how do we start a Muslim student association? You know, like you're my advisor, how do we start a club? Because I think I have enough Muslim students. And I was like, what? They come, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I saw this girl over here who's a hijabi and like her brother also goes here and they have a cousin who goes here. They're all different backgrounds, but like they all identify as Muslim students. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh my gosh, let's bring them in. So two
yeah,
years
right.
with, I think like my support plus also the passion that the students had to create a connection on campus, we were able to establish the first ever at Pierce College Muslim Student Association.
That's so great.
Uh,
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was very exciting. And
You,
it's still alive and thriving. So two
yeah,
years ago, when we started this in 2018, it started with just 5 students. So my student that was a staff member who worked in the office and then 4 other students. And as of spring of this year, they were up to 25 students, which again, being me and living in this area, I was like, wow, there's 25 Muslim students on our campus that we were able to connect with, which is like the minority of minorities. Like it's such a small population, but it's very exciting to know that they have someone and somewhere to connect with, especially in the area that and the time that we live in.
yeah, and that speaks to the beauty of having clubs and orgs on campus.
Yeah,
One, right?
Hmm.
that we can provide this place where folks can come together and find common interests. Like when I was on your campus in January, I was very lucky to have been on your campus in January. Right outside of where we had our event was the gaming club,
Yes.
right? Remember that? And they were playing Dungeons and Dragons, they were playing cards, and that was a group of students. There were probably 8 or 9 that were meeting. It was a Wednesday lunchtime. I don't know if it was common hour, but those students, without that club, might not otherwise stay on campus when they're not at class,
Yeah, a hundred
right?
percent. Mm-hmm.
Right? And and so that same group and the MSA, the Muslim Student Association, right now we're not on campus,
Mm-hmm.
right? How are they doing with virtual connection?
So luckily enough, the gaming students, I think for them, it's easy to kind of transform their platforms to be an online space, you know, because there's different ways to connect when it comes to like online gaming, and whether that's video gaming or PC games and those kinds of things, I think there's a space for that. So actually during spring quarter, when we tried to reconnect most of our clubs, they did not stay connected through our club program. We actually had an unfortunate loss where we didn't really have any formally registered clubs for spring.
Yeah,
So our students that work on our club's board basically we're just trying to plan instead of trying we reached out for like the first half of the quarter, you know, try to get them back and try to get them to connect with us on Canvas, an online platform that I think a lot of schools use, try to get them to connect on social media, and it just wasn't happening. And we're
yeah,
like, okay, instead of continuously trying to get them to come back, let's start planning for fall and how are we going to pitch clubs in an online space.
yeah,
But I think the one thing I will say is that because those clubs have the foundation of meeting on campus, and
yeah,
because they had that connection and they built that foundation, they were able to become friends and stay connected outside of the classroom. So even
right.
though that they're not affiliated with Pierce College Student Life, we see them on social media and we see them hanging out, we see them connecting, we see them social distance hangouts, you know, they've seen each other face to face because we follow all of them and we connect with them on a personal level outside of our office. So we know that they're still doing stuff and they still have those connections. They're just not happening through us. So I think kind of like the selfish part of the department is like, okay, how do we get them to stay connected, but also bring us into the picture again? Because we want
Yeah,
to support them and we want to give them funding and we want to help them
right.
continue to grow and thrive.
Right. You said a few very important things in what you were talking about is that you're actively aware of where they are,
Mm.
right? And that we have to recognize that our students, somebody else used this terminology. They're digital natives,
Yeah,
right? They don't necessarily need us to create the platform for them to get together. They're already doing it, right?
100.
If they were in a club together, they're already connected digitally.
Yep.
They already have each other's phone numbers and social media things, and they probably meet on different platforms already to do what they're doing. And one of the other schools that I talked to in New Jersey, the advisor says that he found out that one of them was making had a YouTube page for their club, and they were doing like makeup and hair.
Oh,
And,
nice.
and he said, well, let me help fund. Let's include learning outcomes in your channel.
Oh,
Right?
nice.
You don't have to do it through us on our platform, but maybe I can help. If we can include some educational piece to it, maybe we can find a way to connect it to the school. So that's an idea for you and for anybody listening to this, is that if you know where those students are, and it also showcases that you care about them, right? That you really care where they are and what they're doing, and you're following them. And we don't have to try we don't have to get them under our umbrella all the time,
Yeah.
right? But we need to keep the space open for them to come back into it.
Yeah, I think 100%. Another thing kind of connecting to all of this is that at the beginning of spring quarter, when we knew that we were going to be online for more than just April, the first thing we did was put out a survey to our students via email and Canvas and social media, just to kind of gauge like, what kind of engagement are you looking for as we make this transition? And I think over 60%, I want to say close to like 67% of the students that we surveyed said that they wanted online content, you know, and I think it's
Yeah.
because they're native to this environment. They didn't necessarily want to come into a Zoom room and have a conversation. They didn't necessarily want to go to an event, but they wanted that online content. So I actually just got out of another meeting where I talked about this to the colleagues in Washington State community colleges. And we just had a little discussion about how my student leaders became YouTubers, right? Like
Yeah.
the folks in New Jersey that you mentioned, they became, I was like, you guys are content creators now. So
Yeah.
how do this? And they were like, we're so excited. Like, I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel and this and that. So we had a few of them do YouTube things. We did Instagram live videos. That way students can choose whether or not they want to opt in and just check out something, watch something, right? Or if they want to actually come to an event, we still had those as an option. But the least interactive engagement, right? That's what they're looking for, where it's like, I can go watch a YouTube video of people in my college and then I can click on my favorite musician, you know? So
Yeah.
like they can.
So that's what you're finding with your students is they prefer the asynchronous, which the do you think somebody else said this is that they're already feeling the connection. They're already so accustomed to making that human contact digitally that sometimes we as advisors maybe you and it could be. Let me try to clarify what I'm saying. That we think they're not connecting
Mhm.
when they actually are.
Yeah, I think that's
Right?
true.
Because you're an extrovert, I'm an extrovert. We love this engagement, right? We and maybe and everyone could just be their bucket is full with their friends. Um, I guess, but we still need to seek out those folks who may not be connecting.
Yeah, I think it's like what you mentioned is that it's us kind of knowing, or it's like, okay, like I need to feel comfortable and to know that I'm doing, good by my staff and good by my students and good for the
Yeah.
department. It's like, well, I need to know that it's happening, right? Just like anything else. So it's kind of hard to be like, oh, like just to expect it and understand like, oh yeah, it is happening. I'm like, no, I want to be a part of it. I want to see it. Like, I want to come to your event. I want to see what you guys are hosting. I want to see
Yeah.
what you're doing. But as you mentioned, maybe their buckets are full and they're connecting in ways that they would normally with their personal lives, with their friends and stuff. And they're just doing that with their classmates.
Yeah.
But need to know is definitely like, okay, I want to know that it's happening. But if it's happening, it's happening. If they're staying in school, and they're staying connected and they have what they need, then we can try to reach out to the students that don't have that, right?
I was thinking, so I'm just brainstorming, like, and using MSA as an example on your campus, is
Yeah.
that there's an MSA, a Muslim Student Association, at a school in Tacoma, and there's another one at a school in Bellingham, and another one maybe even in Portland. Like, are the clubs thinking about connecting with other clubs from other campuses now that we don't need to be sitting at tables in the student center with each other? Has there been any of that?
So I think specifically just to stay with the MSA, because I know that when they were founded, the first thing that they wanted to do was to reach out to other campuses to be like, hey, Pierce has one now,
No.
Puyallup has established Muslim population now. So I know that when we were doing face-to-face things, especially last year, like the celebration that I just mentioned, Eid al-Adha it's a religious celebration that happens after the month of Hajj. And last year, there's another Eid that happens 2 months before Adha is Eid al-Fitr, and that's the end of Ramadan. So last year, our students actually reached out to other campuses to have different iftars, which is the breaking of your fast at the end of a day of fasting during Ramadan. And they were able to connect with, I think they did the MSA at UW, which is a 4-year university. And then they also were able to connect with a few other community colleges, and they went to each other's iftars. So they had hosted different dinners and brought different students, different MSAs and other students who were wanting to be a part of it. They brought each other to different campuses to have like one Friday dinner throughout the month at different campuses to connect all the Muslim students in the South Puget Sound area. I don't think that it's happened online yet, but I think just you asking that question and me talking about it, I think that
Yeah.
it's kind of making me want to be like, okay, when we reach out to them in the fall and we want to get them reconnected, then we can pitch an idea like that where it's like, hey, remember when you guys did this? What if we did like a virtual summit type thing where we can bring the students from the Black student unions all together, to talk about all the stuff that they're facing right now, or the Latina students, our undocumented students. There's so many different ways to connect with people outside of just the institution that you're at. And because we're online, I think it makes it easier because everyone can do it from home. You don't have to
Yeah.
coordinate driving and getting someone to pick you up and drop you off at these different campuses. We can connect in an online world and then hopefully transfer these connections that we made online back to in person when we're able to be in person again.
Right. That's great. I mean, and it does open up because you take travel out of it. You do have a lot of first gen students. You do have a lot of immigrant students. You do have a lot of folks who maybe don't have transportation,
Yeah.
right? But can still build relationships and create connection, and that's wonderful. Hey, let's chat a little bit about what what would an average dude from Nashville not know about wearing a hijab in times of COVID?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think for me, first of all, when COVID first hit, I just opted into just wrapping my scarf like around my face more, which it's like right now, but I would do one of these where I just like pin
Yeah.
it. And
Uh-huh.
like, oh my gosh, the joke in the Muslim community, Jason, is that the niqab or oh my gosh, I'm literally Muslim. I can't think of the other word, but
Uh-huh.
basically like when women in different countries cover their face, right,
Yeah.
and cover their whole bodies, it's called niqab. And all of us are just joking. We're like niqabis, so like women that wear niqab, they're 110 years ahead of everyone because like pandemic,
Yeah.
they're preprepared,
Yeah.
right?
Is it the burqa?
Thank you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's and niqab. The niqab is actually the one that covers your eyes. Sorry to
Yeah.
everyone who knows that that's laughing at me right
So
now.
so no, but like really like so we could say like Muslim women have been COVID proof.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah.
just safe and healthy and COVID proof this whole time, and we're only on now. But I do have this handy dandy little device that I've been flashing around. I'm
Yeah.
down here so people can see it. So basically, obviously, like women that wear hijab, like some of them, like me, cover their ears. Some people have it more loose and don't cover their ears so they can slip a mask on. But my cousin's husband actually 3D printed a whole bunch of these for me so that I can just pop it right on my bun and then I can put my mask on. So it's
That's
great.
great.
Helpful.
Yeah.
And then I also had a friend who was sewing masks from leftover fabric at her house. And she actually, I don't have it with me, but she sewed a mask with ribbons so I could actually just tie it in a bow.
Oh,
So
nice.
I feel like face masks are definitely not inclusive of women that look like me because it's not easy to wear them.
Yeah.
But there's options out there, people.
That's great. That's great. Hey, tell us a little bit. I mean, um, so you have people in the house earlier before we started recording. Um, who all is in your house today still? Because it's now Monday and
This
uh,
Monday.
yeah.
It is 10:30 a.m. on the West Coast.
Yep.
I live with my family during COVID, and my grandma is upstairs. So my dad's mom, she's the woman that raised me, and
Uh-huh.
my brother is also currently in the house as well. And my dad would normally be here, but he's at work. And my mom would normally be here, but she's trapped outside of the country, and she's been gone for 6 months because of COVID.
Oh no, where is she?
She's in Jordan with her mom, which is
Yeah.
cool. With
Yeah.
but America is not really doing their job at keeping us all safe right now, and that's a highly like strong statement to make. But
That's
for
okay.
for people that have family members in different locations who can no longer fly into America, people like
Mhm.
my mom are just on vacation for 6 months and can't.
Right. Because is how is Jordan doing today? It being August 3rd today. It's August 3rd today.
Yes. So Jordan is doing great. Jordan, for those of you that don't know, is a little tiny country in the Middle East, right by Palestine and Syria, and it's the size of New Hampshire, I think. So it's very, very small.
Yeah.
We currently have like less than 100 cases, and all those people are in quarantined at like hospitals. So
Mm.
they're not in pandemic mode the way that we are. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of the world is starting to kind of shift into post-pandemic, but America's kind of stuck in it right now. But
Yeah.
Jordan's good, they're not in quarantine. They're having a normal summer the way that all of us wish we could be.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks like you and me in higher ed and education who are frustrated with our our response to this as a nation, and hopefully next pandemic, you know hopefully there's not another next pandemic, but it's possible, right? In 10 years, the next pandemic that will reflect on how we dealt with this one, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure. Hopefully.
yeah,
I think if anything, it's a huge learning moment in a
yeah,
variety categories. You know, there's so much to learn from what's
Yeah.
happening right now in the response and who's acting which ways. I think a lot of people are learning about a lot of people around them. They're learning about like local things that are happening in their communities. They're learning about things that are happening on a national level because it's affecting all of us. But
Right.
I think at the beginning of all of this, right, everyone was kind of like, well, at least it's the whole world. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not out, but I think Americans are going to start to realize and be like, well, the whole world is hanging out and now we're stuck. So what are we going to do to
Yeah.
fix it, right? And I think we're
Right.
slowly shifting towards that.
Right. Hey, I'm going to ask you a question now that I think is going to surprise a lot of people.
Okay.
Um, but how has your life been easier because of your white privilege?
It's a great question. And I'm glad that you asked it because for those of you that don't know, I am a white woman. I'm an American white woman born and raised in Washington State. I happen to be Muslim. I happen to be a hijabi. That's what I like to tell people. Those things are things that I happen to do and I happen to practice and participate in. But my white skin is something I was born with, which is extremely privileged living in this country. So I think for me, being a Muslim American woman in Washington State in this very rural area, I mean, I don't have a lot of the experiences that a lot of my like fellow Muslim sisters and even like darker skinned Muslim brothers and just darker skinned people in general are facing. I think that being a white American Muslim, I take advantage and I do kind of revel in that privilege where I can. For those of you that are watching this interview, you can probably tell like I'm fairly extroverted and just kind of confident and outspoken. So for me, I like to use my voice in places and create space for people that don't really have the space that they're supposed to be given, right? So for me, growing up as a Muslim American in this area, I haven't really had a lot of problems, thankfully. Like I think I'm very privileged that my family is of a different ethnicity and like we're of lighter skin and we can take advantage of that and create spaces for people that necessarily don't get the same treatment that we do.
Right. What is the heritage? What is your mom's from Jordan?
So my family is nationally from Jordan.
Yeah.
Thing that always is the curveball that confuses everyone is that my family is ethnically Circassian, which is from the Caucasus region in Russia. So like modern day Georgia, that kind of area, like the Caucasus Mountains. My family is literally Caucasian. Like we're the ethnic Caucasian.
From the Caucasus Mountains.
100%. That's
100%, right.
that's why we're fair skinned. But yeah,
Yeah.
my parents and my grandma, who's upstairs, they're Circassian and they immigrated into Jordan, into the Middle East. So they were born there. Like our ancestors immigrated and then my parents were born there. So they're nationally Jordanian. We speak Arabic. We call Jordan our home country, but our ethnic makeup is actually Circassian.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, there's not a lot of us. I think there's a big population in New Jersey and then
Mhm.
Southern California, but outside of that, most of them are either in Jordan or Syria, Palestine, and then mostly back home in Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Circassian.
Yeah, Circassian, Cherkess, Circassian. There's like variant ways to say it. Shark
Right.
is how you say it in
And,
Arabic.
and the and the country of origin
Russia.
is Russia, but it was Russia as far back as you can remember. Like it was the Soviet Union.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Go over the
So the southwestern region of Russia, there's a town that's called Nalchik, and
Yeah.
that's where most of the Circassians are from.
Wow. Have you had a chance or plan to visit?
I actually am very lucky that I have friends over there. So maybe sometime in the future, I think it'd be really cool to dig into those roots and go back there at some point. But for now, I visit Jordan like every 2 years, and I
Yeah.
was actually supposed to go this summer, but pandemic, so I didn't make it
Yeah.
over. But we visit Jordan a lot to connect with our family that's back home, but I haven't
Yeah.
actually gone to our ancestral lands just yet. But I do plan on it. I hope so. I think it'd be really fun.
Yeah. I think so too. I think that I've learned a lot in our conversation.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about this before.
No, no, I think this is super cool, and I think I honestly think it's eye opening for a lot of folks who maybe don't have a Muslim student group on their campus, or we have a big country,
Yeah.
and I'm lucky I get to travel, and now we're all lucky because we all get to travel through
All
this platform. We get to go like you're my neighbor,
yeah,
right? you're in Puyallup and I'm in Nashville. Or I don't know. Actually, you could be in another town. Your school is in Puyallup.
I'm in Puyallup. I live in the same town my school's in.
Oh, that's convenient.
Oh yeah, work is 6 miles down the road.
That's so and it's so beautiful there. Hey, what are you most excited about for the upcoming school year?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I'm just excited to get ready, to get started,
Yeah.
because I think we have been getting ready for a very long time. So I think for this school year, I'm just excited to get started and see what we can do in a virtual world, and I'm very excited, first of all, to be a part of this project, and second of all, that this project is even happening,
Mhm.
because I think that this will be great. Like I mentioned to you before, I think this will be great for staff and students alike. I think there's a lot to learn from the different people that are going to be a part of this conversation. And I think once campus actually opens virtually and classes begin again, I think I just am really excited to get started and connect with some new students and again, see those foundations that we can build online. And then hopefully, if campuses are to open in 2021, to be able to meet those people. I think that there's some excitement. Being someone who connects with people online, as I mentioned, all the time through school
Yeah.
and my personal life, because most of my family is back home. I've been on Skype calls and FaceTimes and all that kind of stuff, like as soon as they started, maybe 10, 12 years ago. So there's an excitement that comes with building a connection with someone online and then
Yeah.
seeing face to face for the first time.
Right.
Hope that we can kind of build that experience with students where it's like, oh man, like I'm going back to campus tomorrow. Can't wait to see so and so who I connected with at this event or in this online world.
Right. No, it's really neat. So folks really do have the opportunity to get to know each other, and
Yeah.
your positivity is contagious, and you have balloons.
Balloons!
Balloons. Hey, thanks for chatting with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. I'm
Uh,
really excited to see the rest of the interviews that are going to be playing.
there's some good ones. There's some good ones, and this is a good one too. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll catch up again very soon. Bye.